Greetings, one and all. Getting the daily live stream up and running. Hope you're doing well where you're at. Just going to check out the audio, make sure that we're good to go here. The old YouTubes. You got to change. I keep forgetting to edit the name of this thing. It's no longer April. It's now May. All right, let's save that. See if we got audio. Yeah, and if you haven't picked up, I've got the crappy AirPod microphones kicking. I do not have this beautiful, much better microphone available to me today because I'm still in UPS hell. Computer at my base computer where I can run my special camera and special mic and all that. Still not here. Supposed to. I just heard might be here today. It's I had to send it for repair because we basically have been running it for 2 years solid, and the battery was just like, and I think the house is falling down around me. Maybe the office is destroying itself. I don't know. Um, but regardless of all that, if all the lights and stuff crash in on my head, it's okay. Um, it's okay. But we're gonna get to some work regardless, because we have Ricardo making an appearance, and Heather's back as well. Obviously, both working on different things, but we're going to jump in here and take a peek at what they've got. And I've been running things a little differently as of late. Um, just just going with the straight feedback loop. As soon as the other machine gets here, I will get back to the process of recording and churning out more polished videos. This machine just does not have the juice. It's a loaner. It just doesn't have the juice to produce what we need to do. So hopefully that ends today, though. Anyway, let's go ahead and get this underway. Welcome to the feedback loop. Chris Courtney here, NewPragmatic, and we've got Heather and Ricardo in today. A couple students turning in some work. Ricardo's working through the Fresh Market project, so I definitely have some dedicated guidance for him. And Heather is just beginning to get into visual design. And in each case, I always find myself coaching ahead of where you're at. I'm going to be dropping some things in that, you know, yes, or does it directly apply to what you're working on right now? No, but it applies to the final process. It applies to the overall process. If I was doing this for real, I would also do X. So I'm going to be dropping those things in. And with that in mind, let's go ahead and get this underway. I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to start right here with Heather. And Heather, you're working through the hierarchy exercise. And the hierarchy exercise, you're basically trying to, you're swimming around in all these images that I've provided, and some of these are nature images, some of these are bridges, and you're trying to make the page move a particular direction. And what I would say is that overall, this one is trying to say, okay, whatever images that you've selected, make the page move horizontally, and it needs to move side to side. I'm not looking for tall, I'm looking for wide. And you've done two things. You've edited out the tall images, and you've also paid close attention to, oh, I'm using nature photos here. And that's pretty standard. That's me trying to say, hey, are you paying attention? You could go further with this in that, you know, the grid is here. The grid is provided for you. You don't have to go create it. And I would just simply align these things, these images to the grid, so that I could, more effectively present the images. Now you could maximize this if you wanted to. and then you could inset these. That's something that you could do. You could also use the grid for strategic spacing between. You also use the grid, frankly, to say, hey, I'm going to I'm going to use this spacing as a unique modifier to push images away from one another. But overall, what I'm encouraging you to do is, in whatever manner that you decide to use it, the grid is here for you. By all means, utilize it. Okay. Now you met the criteria. Like, this is a hierarchy exercise. Can you make one of the images bigger so that I can go look at that? All right. You did that, and that's fine. Um, and you picked out some really nice photos. That's great. Let's move on to the second one. Okay, so this is vertical nature, and here it's kind of funny. You naturally gravitate it to the grid. And it's the first one was your first attempt at this exercise. Your second one, obviously, you just finished the first one, likely, and you started with this one. Like, you aligned. Let's back this up a second. You aligned immediately on the grid, and then you actually put these completely in the grid. Now, you could have, one thing I see a lot of people do is they stop right here. This is simply saying that when you're looking at this on a monitor, this is where things will clip off. Okay. Now, that is taken directly from the size of the frame that Figma provides. Okay. That this does not mean it's going to clip off on every monitor, but Figma provides a desktop shape, and that's where it clips. But you could have just as easily come through and done that, or done this. It matters not to me. The focus of the exercise is, can you come through and create a vertical solution that that draws attention to a particular area? And clearly, regardless of how you feel about this, our eye goes immediately right to here. Why is that? Well, because it's the largest item on the page. Does that mean that this image couldn't have been the largest item on the page? No, it being like this is just a selection of images, all right, and you've selected a really nice one. It's really dark, and it has a lot to offer. But again, like, don't worry about that line. I've sometimes even thought about deleting that line, or drawing that line just over here to indicate, like, there is a fold. I just want to make you aware that the screen does stop, and at some point you have to scroll to see the rest of it. That does not mean you have to stop there. Okay. Let's move over here to bridges. Okay. Now you're doing it. Now you're saying, oh, hey, I gotta have some text in here. And that's okay, but no, you don't have to have text in here. You don't. Like the text, not required. All right. And I just want to move that off the side, because that's getting away from the exercise, and I need us to get comfortable with, okay, what has the client asked us to do? All right. They've asked me to use bridge photos and to make this horizontal, right? Okay. Have I been asked to add text anywhere? No. Okay. Now, does that improve the design? Well, I don't know. One thing I'll say is that I'm seeing it again. You're now kind of creating an internal grid. Now, I do think that there are ways to go about this and make this a little cleaner. So, for instance, I'm going to actually utilize the grid here, and you might be saying to yourself, well, Chris, I want this to be the same height as that one. Well, the thing is, this is set to fill right now, which means that as you like drag it, it's not going to squish. A lot of people get this issue where they move a photo and it squishes, and that only happens if you are set to fit, and then it's like, well, sorry, crop should do it as well. No, no, crop's not going to do it. I'm trying to figure out how. Oh yeah, there it is. I held Option down. You don't want to do that. So if you say fill, fill will simply just hold, and you'll see it. It'll like expand wide or go tall, whatever it is. It'll crop for you. But as we look at this, like this is doing the same thing you were doing before, except it's utilizing the grid. And I would rather you utilize the grid that's provided than try to eyeball it. Okay. Eyeballing it is where we tend to have some struggles. I'm going to copy these three and I'm going to undo the changes that I made so that we can layer these over the top of one another. All right, so let's do this. All right, so that's where you started at, and that's where the finished version was. It's very close. The one in the lower left that never even moved. All right, but focus on utilizing the grid provided, or in the next exercise you're going to learn how to create grids, and everything's going to be focused on grids. So we're going to go into this grid concept a lot more. Same thing here. Here you utilize this bridges get you over it thing again. I'm going to move this one up here. You have a lot of really great images to go off of. This bridge here is in Mumbai. It's amazing. Yeah, you could have just as easily done this and gone much taller with it. Um, Same thing here. This little pedestrian walkway bridge I've always thought is really neat. But regardless of that, you could have, if you utilize the grid, there's room here to work in more. Do you have any other vertical bridge images? Um, Probably not. I mean, maybe this one. And here's the other question that I have for you. If I, you know, could I crop this image to be vertical? And the answer is yeah. Yeah, you could totally do that. That's not a big deal. Could I come in here and crop this further to stylize it? Yeah, could. Could I take this image and make it vertical? Probably not. But what I could do is I could move this one down and put this one like right between the two. And the challenge I have that I ask of you now is, can I use this horizontal image amid a group of images that are all vertical? If the whole focus is vertical focus, you know, I need this to feel vertical. Well, this horizontal photo does not break the vertical movement of the page. Okay, it even if it was larger. I mean, if this one came out and kind of challenged and did something like that, it still doesn't break the vertical movement of the page. It's just a horizontal photo. The thrust of the page is still vertical. Okay, so just keep that in mind as you're moving forward. Some things you can crop. Some things can't be cropped. So like this, if you went to crop it, let's just look at cropping it for a second and say, oh, you know what? I just want this. Well, that isn't nearly as good. That image feels incomplete. I'm not sure if it's a bridge or if it's some Canon thing. I don't know what that is, right? So there's some images that you can just crop and totally ruin them. But there are others that like this one down here, we could totally get away with cropping it because it shows the bridge off to the distance. This was the edge of the photo anyway. The rest of the photo was, I don't know if that's really all that important. but you could have at minimum, that's still a vertical photo. So just understand that, this isn't about everything having to be vertical. And there are images that you can crop. There are images that you can't, and we've kind of showed the difference there. Um, but the real thrust of this is, can I use something vertical and make that the centerpiece? And in each of the cases, regardless of the things that I've done and the kind of tweaks that I've shown, yeah, you've met that mark. Could we do it more eloquently using the grid? And the answer there is absolutely yes. Okay. Now you've got a part two here, and part two doesn't look like it's been started at all. I want to kind of I want to work on this, and like this says emphasis top, emphasis left two. So it's basically challenging you to do it two different ways. I'm going to do emphasis right. All right. So emphasis right. What does that mean? Well, that means that I want to draw attention to the right side of the page. Now, we know this is really where you begin to get into the F and Z patterns that you were mentioning before. And I think that you were looking for that a little early. Okay. So here with emphasis, if we say emphasis right, and I'm just going to copy this and I'll paste it down here, and we'll say emphasis right. And I'll keep this one because this one isn't part of the exercise. I'll just keep this one on the canvas for your further review. I'm just going to copy a group of your toys here. All right. So I have a grid. Okay. And it should be pretty clear that that grid is aligning, oddly enough, with the left side and the right side of the content that's in the navigation bar. I said that I wanted the emphasis to be on the right. So in this particular case, I'm going to break these apart, and that is Shift Command G to ungroup. I have a couple things that I could do. I'm putting the emphasis on. If I'm putting the emphasis on the right, there's a couple of things that are. There's only really a couple of things that I could be talking about. That is content and image. I have these little things, these little secondary considerations. I guarantee that if I'm putting my emphasis over here on the right, I'm not going to like try to put all of these things somehow over here to draw attention. These are secondary items. Okay. So in this particular case, I'm just going to line them up on the left. And you may say to yourself, Chris, what type of design is that? And my answer would be not one that I would use. Like this would never cross my mind as something that I would want to do. That's why I don't ask you to put the emphasis on the left or put the emphasis on the right. I ask you to put the emphasis on the left because that's where the eye starts. That's where we begin our focus, or put it on the top. Emphasis on the right is changing the consideration, saying, hey, you know what, instead of following traditional design and saying, I need my focus to be over in this corner somehow, I'm going to flip it over to this corner. And there's a couple of things that you could do with when you're putting the emphasis on the right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this photo a little larger. I could even make it significantly larger. And this is going back to the exercise that we just did, where we're saying, hey, use an image and use it with some decent size so that my eye, when I'm looking at this, regardless of what I do, I'm immediately drawn to here. I know my eye is going to start here, but I'm going to kind of go down. It's going to break the pattern of me just following across. I'm going to gravitate here, and that's what happens when you have more than one thing to look at on a page. Is that your eye may begin in a very common place, but it gravitates directionally to the largest thing on the page. or the brightest thing on the page. There's a lot of different ways to grab and force emphasis. But here, I'm going to ungroup again. So it's Shift Command G. Here I could do something along these lines. And this is effectively creating emphasis on the right side of that page. Now, you could come in here and say, oh, well, I want this to be over here. That's fine. You could also come in and say, oh, but I want these to be aligned right. Now, I would never encourage that, especially for a lot of text. But yeah, I guess you could do that. That would definitely draw some attention to it because it's aligned in a strange way. I don't think that's necessary for this task. So I'm just going to leave it here. But when we look at this, the page clearly has an emphasis to the right instead of an emphasis to the left. Now, did I just give you a solution? Well, yeah, I gave you a solution because obviously you could flip this and suddenly the emphasis is, instead of on the right, it's on the left, right? But you have to come up with two emphasis lefts. How would you do this design differently? Now, I gave you a lot of pre-built shapes here. Why? Well, because I don't want you having to go looking around for content and like, what, you're being asked to, you don't even know what the company name is. I have to provide you with some stuff here. All right. Just like in the other examples, I provided you with photos. I didn't ask for you to go get text. Here, I'm giving you the text. I'm not asking for you to go get anything else other than the shapes that are provided here. All right. But now, emphasis top, emphasis left, and emphasis left 2. And note that there are some additional considerations here. One thing that is standard throughout is the nav bar. I mean, the nav bar is just going to be the nav bar. It's there, all right? So what else can you do with the page? The nav bar is where it is, all right? Okay, I'm going to leave that there. And let's come on over here to Ricardo. And Ricardo, I've got, sorry, I've got to find my way to Ricardo's. Where did the internet go? It's really weird. Oh, never mind. I know where the internet went. And Ricardo, we're here on your competitor matrix. And your competitor matrix is actually pretty good. You identified Amazon Fresh, Burkett's, which I think Burkett's is definitely the one that like grabbed my attention. It's something that is very unique to your project. It shows that you're like, okay, local and grocery store, and they deliver groceries, and that's great. Instacart delivers groceries, food delivery, deliver fast food, deliver fast food, deliver fast food. Okay, so I'm seeing you hit, and I like the idea of you being able to pick up like, oh, okay, these are the primary competitors and these are the secondary competitors. But what we've missed in here is something that is related to the stakeholder interview that you did. Where is it? Okay. So in your stakeholder interview, you had some questions here, and one was, well, a lot of this is like, okay, so they're wanting to deliver meals, and they've got a deli, and you come down here and you asked a question here: what would prevent customers from ordering the same items from Uber Eats or DoorDash? We don't currently offer delivery to those platforms because we don't want to get into the single order business. We want to develop a predictable recurring revenue. We want to develop predictable recurring revenue. Uber, DoorDash aren't really built for that. They are wanting to create a subscription service. All right. And when you think about food subscriptions, like what are some things that are food subscriptions? And there's, specifically talking about meals. It's in the stakeholder document. Like, what are the companies I should be focusing on? And when you do, you know, food delivery subscription, when I go into Google and I do that, I get HelloFresh, Blue Apron, Green Chef, Meal Box Services. Um, Another one that's not directly listed here, I'll give you two: Freshly and Home Chef. And Home Chef actually was the impetus of this exercise. This is a meal delivery service that was purchased by Kroger. So a grocery store just said, "Hey, I want one of those meal delivery startup things. I'm going to go buy this one." They paid $80 million for this one. This was based in Chicago, and brought it over. These are among the most direct competitors to Fresh Market because they are doing the subscription service. Okay, so I think that you've picked, like, Burkett's is interesting because they are the type of company that matches closely with what Fresh Market is. If you took a Burkett's and you matched a Home Chef with them, they would have the business. Okay, so Burkett's and Home Chef, or Burkett's and Freshly, those are the ones that are most direct. Okay, um, Amazon probably has some level of this because they do have meal kits. Okay, and they could deliver that in a subscription service. That subscription thing with Amazon is strong. So I think that is one I would definitely keep in here. Burkett's is one that I would keep in here. Instacart, Postmates, those are less so because I don't see those as predictable, recurring revenue that is focused on that delivery aspect. Uber Eats and Grubhub, less so. All right. So I want to see you take a stab at a couple of the food delivery services that are subscription based, because that really gets back to the core of the exercise. And then the heuristics testing. I see the worksheet is attached, but you haven't gone into that yet. I would definitely make sure that um, at least do heuristics testing on Amazon, heuristics testing on Burkett's, and then pick one of the Home Chef or Freshly or Blue Apron. Like, there's a wide variety of those services. Very few of them are attached to a chain. Home Chef is obviously the outlier there because like a company came and bought them. So that would be the next move that I would make here, and then really you're going to start building your research cohort with your surveys. So that said, that would be the next step that I take here. I think you did a pretty good job, although I think that as you get further down from Amazon Fresh and Burkett's, you're getting into ones that are more like, I'm going to deliver a pizza to you. Unless that pizza is delivered every, twice a week, on a recurring subscription service, that's not really what Fresh Market's looking for. They are looking to develop a recurring business model, and that's what's missing from your matrix right now. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Feedback Loop. Thank you, Heather and Ricardo, for submitting your work today. It's always good to see kind of, Heather, in Heather's case, where the boundaries are mentally for you as you're beginning to eke into the visual design exercises that really underpin interface design. Like, you can't do effective interface design if you don't understand the basics of visual design first. And then for Ricardo, it's interesting to see, like, okay, what do you see as the competitors? And are you using the subsequent exercises that you're doing as these things build into the larger project that you're working on? All of these exercises stack together. So, those stakeholder interview questions that you asked should be directly referenced as you're moving forward. And the answers, The answers are sprinkled into all of the exercises that you're doing. That should be the guiding force. These things are not, they're not siloed off from one another. Everything kind of stacks and builds. Okay. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of the Feedback Loop. Hope this was good for you. It was great for me. And I will chat with all of you. I'll chat with many of you later today, as it is Monday. And for the rest of you, I'll see you. I'll see you soon. Take care.